Alright, so we are back taking a look at a semifinal match in the Netolic Raidcall Weekly Open Cup Americas Division between the Ice Gaming on the Radiant and Sick Gaming on the Dire. So two teams that are up in the semifinal match. We'll see the winner move on to the finals on Sunday. I have not had the privilege of actually watching or commentating on either of these teams before, but they've gotten this far, so obviously they're at pretty high level. I have seen some of the drafts for both teams and the team matchmaking. I do know that, so Sick Gaming, a team that favors sometimes some general sports like Jakiro. We've seen them play Lina quite a bit, so that's always an interesting choice, especially if you're looking for ganks or team fighting. And then I always seen them pick up Silencer fairly frequently, so it'll be interesting to see if we actually see a Silencer pick up in this particular game. And then for Ice Gaming, I know a lot less about them. I do know that Ice Gaming are actually, I think, from Paraguay, and then Sick Gaming are actually an Uruguayan team. So, interesting in that respect as well. Not your sort of standard, whatever, the US, Canadian teams. But two teams that are quite strong. They've gotten through the previous stages of the tournament, and so we're going to get right up into the draft. Take a look at the semifinal match between these two teams. It will be best of 3. And again, I'm Vikramond. This is a tournament sponsored by Raidcall. It's run weekly. I hear that they're actually looking for additional teams to sign up, so if you do have an amateur team, you think you can beat some of these teams, you should absolutely go to their website, netolic.tv, and sign up for that. So, getting up into the draft, we actually are in the ban phase already. So we have 2 bans coming out. It looks like the first pick will be for so the Ice Gaming on the Radiant will actually get the first pick. Sometimes on some tournaments you sort of have a coin toss for which team actually gets first pick versus which team gets with side. So Radiant doesn't always get the first pick. Sometimes Dire gets the first pick. In this case we do have Radiant. So them taking out Magnus, Keeper of the Light, and then Dire taking out Wisp and Batrider. All fairly typical bans. Nothing tremendously unusual to comment on here. The one thing is that Nyx Assassin has made it through. There's a number of other heroes that made it through. Darkseer. You'll probably see those heroes get picked up pretty early. Like I sort of said when we did our Wednesday broadcast, right now we have very, very defined picks for sort of what I would call the hero core. So we have heroes that you always see banned, and whichever of that group are not banned are usually picked up first or among the first heroes in the game. So you do see heroes like Nyx Assassin always they either get taken out, usually by the second pick team in their ban phase, and then they're picked up if they're not. And so Undying hero is also fairly common for a pick as well. He does contribute a large amount to a tri-lane. Both of these are heroes that can contribute a lot to a tri-lane. We have seen Nyx Assassin lately. Teams have somewhat experimented with running him as a middle hero as well. It doesn't reward you that much in terms of getting farm, but it does get you those levels very, very quickly for those long stunts on Impale, that extra mobile ganking potential that Nyx Assassin can actually give you. So both teams running out of the gate with some very, very strong picks, and that's sort of what we'd expect. When we looked at the draft on Wednesday, I'm going to turn up the game sound just a bit, because it's a little on the quiet. Actually, is it? For some reason, it feels as though the game sound is a little quieter than it should be, but maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's actually fine. Alright, whatever. At any rate, hopefully y'all can hear me just fine. So, Sick Gaming actually picking out 2 support heroes already, so this is interesting. They actually have the Undying and the Rubik already picked up. So, we are going to see them, they sort of, what remains are probably something like a solo lane hero, a carry, a mid. Whereas for Ice Gaming, they actually do get the Darkseer. So again, this is one of those absolutely core heroes, and they get Gyrocopter, one of the 2 carry heroes that you almost always see. Not always played as a carry. There are teams that like No Tidehunter that are more experimental with their approach to Gyrocopter. They'll actually use the Gyrocopter as sort of a support or even a roamer that sort of picks up farm later and actually becomes a threat later. But most teams right now are actually using Gyrocopter as that primary farmer, primary safe lane carry, or if you're in an aggressive tri-lane, primary aggressive tri-lane carry, who just get a lot of farm, tries to pick up that early BKB, tries to pick up something like an early MKB or crit or something like that, where he's doing a lot of damage in a full AoE with that flat cannon, and is actually able to carry you through those team fights. Gyrocopter, he's quite a versatile hero. He's got that magic damage early, he's got that physical damage late, so there's no point in the game at which he's just useless. Especially, we've seen some teams are still running the sort of classic hard carries, but sometimes we just see that in the current metagame where there's a lot of 5-man Dota, especially sort of in the early mid-game, you do see that people who draft something like a Faceless Void, just today actually, we saw a team, I don't remember if it was Mouse, it might have been Mouse, but some team picked up a fairly early Faceless Void, and the Void got reasonable amounts of farm, but the problem is that if you're a Void up against something like a Lifestealer or a Gyrocopter, that Lifestealer or that Gyrocopter is just already able to deal quite a bit of damage before they actually get a big item loadout, so that before your Void is ready, they're already roaming and trying to pick you off, and doing a lot of damage to your team when you're still ensconced firmly into the farm phase. So we do actually see, speaking of Lifestealer, Sick Gaming also picks that up. The other sort of carry that you sort of always see, or you always see him dealt with or answered in some form or another. So they pick up what is most likely their carry as well. Lifestealer does have some versatility. We've seen teams run him as a dual mid. Something like Rubik Lifestealer is a possibility, though I would say not tremendously probable. We have seen Lifestealer as the solo hard lane run once or twice, although I definitely don't generally recommend that, and I don't think it's a very widely adopted approach. And then, of course, there is also the option of running the Lifestealer primarily in the jungle. I know we saw Team Liquid do that once or twice, possibly. But again, these are fairly exotic options. The most standard option is still to run that Lifestealer just in that safe lane, tri lane, and run him as your primary farmer. And really dominate that mid game, because that's really what Lifestealer gives you, a very, very tanky carry who absolutely takes control of the mid game. So they'll be happy if that pans out for them, definitely. Meanwhile, just a note, they do have the Nyx Assassin. This is one part of their tri-lane here for Ice Gaming, unless they do decide to run them up in the middle. And they have a solo lane hero in the form of the Darkseer. Sick Gaming really doesn't have a very strong solo lane hero. They do have some options. The Undying has been run sometimes in a 1vs3. It's very, very tough to get him up to the creep wave and to survive, but he does have that spoiler potential with the Tombstone, especially if you rotate someone over. And then this Lifestealer,
5 seconds remaining.
Also an optional, but a very, very exotic one. Rubik, too, for that matter. Most likely they're going to be looking for something else. And so you actually see, in the second ban phase, Ice Gaming are actually taking away some of the additional solo lane options that they have. So they took out the Magnus, who, less popular these days as a solo versus as a mid, but still a relatively good choice for something that's in a solo lane. And then Puck, another option, especially something like a solo safe if you run an aggressive tri with this Undying Rubik Lifestealer. Undying is such a strong tri-lane hero that just Undying alone makes it frequently viable for you to run just 3 up against 3 and hope to actually survive in that situation. Also, early on, there's not a lot the Gyrocopter can do to Lifestealer that it can't counter, just because this homing missile, you know exactly when it's going to hit you, you can rage right through it. And for that matter, this incredible, very, very early game damage that Gyrocopter gives with the Rocket Barrage, this is all magical as well, so this will be fully stuffed by Rage. Like, even at its level 1 form, where Rage only gives 3 seconds of magic immunity, that's enough for the entirety of the Rocket Barrage to actually be cancelled if Lifestealer times it appropriately. And so Gyrocopter really does almost no physical damage early, whereas Lifestealer all throughout the game, I mean, his only magic damage that he does of any sort is really this Infest damage. And it's actually not, this Infest damage can be relevant in some fringe situations, but certainly nobody's going to be like, oh, you should pick Lifestealer because he's a great AoE magic damage dealer from his Infest. That's not something that you'll commonly see. What we do have to keep an eye out for is additional heroes that Sick Gaming could pick up that really ramp up this Lifestealer. Lifestealer is a good pick by himself, but the other thing is that this Infest has such an exotic ability that there are other heroes that you can sort of pick as spoilers later on in the draft that you can pair up with that Lifestealer to really give that Infest even more potency. You see that they actually take out Queen of Pain. Queen of Pain's one great hero because she can blink around with the Lifestealer inside of her, but it's hardly the only one. They still have the option of something a little more exotic, like a Storm Spirit, like a Nature's Prophet. Sort of any hero with global positioning utility is one that Lifestealer is going to pair up extremely well with. Wisp is actually also doubly notable because, of course, Wisp can take someone else with her, and then Lifestealer can hitch a ride, and either the person being taken for a ride with Wisp or the Wisp itself, thus giving you just additional mobile ganking potential. But, of course, Wisp was taken out in this
10 seconds remaining.
Just to go quickly over the bans, we did see a number of other mid-targeted bans.
5
Puck
seconds
frequently
remaining.
a pretty common mid currently. We've got Queen of Pain taken out, Brewmaster. We don't see quite as often, but he is a fairly strong option against the Lifestealer here. And then Templar Assassin, and just yet another mid option, as well as the Phantom Lancer as a carry and the Shadow Demon for the support.
Ten seconds remaining. 5 seconds remaining. Reserve time.
Alright, sorry about that. I just had to take a quick break. So, we do see Jakiro. So Jakiro, a hero that has gotten really quite a bit less popular in the world of supports, but still very high potential hero. We do see some professional teams still favor Jakiro. I know Navi runs him semi-frequently. Basically, the only nerf he got, and this is really testament to how delicate things are in Dota. So you had Jakiro, who was a lock for the first couple picks with his old ice path. And then the only thing that changed was you had the damage ramp 25, 50, 75, 100 instead of 100 at all ranks. And that was enough to take him down from a first pick status hero. He was never really first ban status, but first pick status hero, all the way down to he's a situational support choice. So certainly he's a useful hero. He is always an option that you should keep in mind, and teams always have him as a resource. But he's not a lock. He's not in that tier 1 of supports where Keeper of the Light, Wisp, Nyx Assassin, where he's just always picked up. So looking for a 5th hero here for Ice, it looks like they do have actually a number of options. They do end up going with the Storm Spirit, so that gives them their mid. They're going to be running the Storm Spirit up against Night Stalker from Sick Gaming up in the middle, and that's a very interesting lane. 2 heroes that are a little less common. We do see the Storm Spirit sometime. It's a hero with great upside potential, and then if you don't really take advantage of his upside potential, it just becomes sort of a non-entity. It's not a hero that you can go okay with. It's not a hero where a game is ever going to go,
10 seconds
well, you know, he contributed, but he wasn't the key to us winning. If Storm Spirit is doing very well, he will be the reason why you won a game. Like, he will completely take over, he'll zip around everywhere, he'll be a huge force wherever he actually goes. And if he doesn't do well, he almost becomes completely not effective. And second, I'm actually taking Clockwork. So, interesting choices here where, I mean, they did need a solo lane hero. Clockwork is one of the more popular solos right now, so they will be sending him up into the solo hard lane. But just something I wanted to note where a lot of teams will pick up a Clockwork actually as a counter to Lifestealer, and a lot of teams will pick up a Storm Spirit as a pair with Lifestealer. But instead, we actually see the non-intuitive choices of Ice Gaming picking up the Storm Spirit and Sick Gaming picking up the Clockwork. So, of course, in this case, Clockwork wasn't really a viable option. Clockwork isn't much of a tri-lane hero. It's rare that teams will actually run him up in a tri-lane. Possible, but rare. So, it was much more likely that Dire actually take Clockwork. So let's introduce the players really quickly. We've got MTRX up in the middle on the Storm Spirit for Ice Gaming, who are on the Radiant. Daiko is in the, sorry, I should say Joss Top in the solo hard lane as Darkseer. And then the tri-lane will be composed of Gyrocopter, who's played by Benjaz. And then Monra on the Jakiro, and ZNDRZ on the Nyx Assassin. I probably won't be saying his name that often. Meanwhile, going over to the Dire side, we have for Sick Gaming, the team from Uruguay. We've got Rots on the Lifestealer, then Onfire on the Rubik, and Rises on the Undying. This will form their sort of core tri-lane up in the top lane. Then Charlotte on the Night Stalker is going to go into the middle, and then for the solo hard lane hero, they have Lice on Clockwork. So, pretty standard lanes. There was really not a lot of possibility for different lanes in this configuration. The only sort of thing that we could have seen would be something like a Clockwork up in the solo safe, and then the aggressive tri-lane from Sick, but it would be much more likely for them to actually do that if they had picked a hero other than Clockwork. Clockwork, there's not really that much point in sending him into a one-on-one lane. He's not tremendously likely to get a kill in that lane. Like, he's not likely to kill his lane opponent. And really, one of the nice things about Clockwork is that he can stand up to this 1v3 lane, because if he gets power cogs, he can walk away from most even fairly concerted gank attempts that the other team might try to run on him. And so, really, you don't get that much from running him up one-on-one against this Darkseer, not to mention, up against a Darkseer in a one-on-one melee lane, it can be a really punishing experience because of the way Ion Shell works. The Clockwork would take a lot of damage every time he actually came up to try to get some farm. So he does get a haste rune early, and so that gives Joss Top the room to actually take Ion Shell first rather than Surge for more escapability. So he does manage to already put an Ion Shell up, get a little bit of damage in here. I think he might have even gotten a last hit off of it. So yeah, a little bit of XP early on the board for this Darkseer. Clockwork, meanwhile, is unlikely to get a last hit that early. There's quite a bit of stun potential in this tri-lane. You have the Nyx Assassin Jakiro. You can do something like set up the Nyx Assassin with the Jakiro or vice versa. And then follow that up with something like a Clockwork Rocket, Gyrocopter Rocket Barrage. If Gyrocopter starts on top of Clockwork, like, if Clockwork is stunned all throughout the time that it takes Gyrocopter to walk over and actually deal damage, then that's going to be a dead Clockwork. Clockwork's escapability, much vaunted escapability, will be completely useless in that point. Because to escape with Power Cogs, the opponent that you're trying to escape from has to not be on top of you. If they're on top of you, the Power Cogs will simply lock you in with them. And that's really not something you want to be doing if you're using Power Cogs as an escape tool. If you're using it as a ganking tool, which is really its primary usage, then yeah, absolutely you want them to be locked in with you. You want to sort of have that pseudo-disabling prison. But if a Gyrocopter is angry and he's on top of you and he's got Rocket Barrage ready to unleash, then you really, really don't want that to follow up 2 stuns and be locked in with him in a Power Cogs. So definitely going to have to be incredibly careful play from Lice on this Clockwork if he wants to actually stay alive and somehow be able to get some XP. But both carries managed to get pretty good development already, and the middle is also more or less a trade-off. We've got Nightstalker with a very, very early bottle here, and the Storm Spirit also with his bottle done as well. You see them currently mostly ferrying, mostly doing bottle ferrying, using those couriers to actually bring them the bottles and making sure that they actually get all their mana back up between each cycle. Nightstalker in a lane like this, where it's not melee versus melee, it's melee versus ranged, he starts at a natural somewhat disadvantage for last hitting, so it's very important for him to actually be able to use this Void for some of his farming. This is what you'll see. You rarely see this at low levels, but at higher level play, like the ones we're seeing, you do see Nightstalker not just relying on his mediocre attack animation to get farm. He will actually be using Void to get some blast hits as well, because it's much, much harder to deny if you're the enemy player. If the enemy is very conscientious about denying, it's hard to actually deny a Void because it does so much more damage than your auto attack. So he'll be using that. He's already used it to snatch a few last hits, and you'll see him continue to do that in the future in this lane. And relying on the courier to just give him the mana needed to be able to sustain that Void usage. Meanwhile, we do see a rotation, but these 2 heroes are spotted out, so I think Storm Spirit has some idea that the Sick are going for the first blood here. But they are going to bring out the Undying and the Rubik. Avoid going out, but Nightstalker's already taking a lot of damage. Storm Spirit might actually pick up the first blood here before he gets hit. Oh, and the Rubik lift does come out. He's doing as much damage as he can, but Rubik picks up the first blood for Sick Gaming, so Storm Spirit dying in the middle, they're definitely applying the correct sort of force to make sure that the Nightstalker doesn't lose this lane and is able to get his levels. And it's funny because there's actually a smoke gang coming out right on Nightstalker following it up, so Ice just a little bit too late to do that, and a great dodge of that Jakiro Ice Path. They do slow him with the Frost Breath, so he's taking quite a bit, but it looks like the Nightstalker will actually make it out of this. So, no kill on the other side. Both teams sort of rotating their 2 supports over almost simultaneously to attempt to get the kills. But again, in that sort of just very fine timing, Sick Gaming just bring their 2 supports over just early enough that they were able to secure the kill on Storm Spirit before the supports from Ice arrived to actually either stop the kill or turn it around on Nightstalker. And finally, excellent play from Charlotte here. That sideways juke, you had the Jakiro Ice Path coming down like this. He sees that it's coming out. He walks this way. He has no boots. He had no boots at that time. He just had to deliver. Makes sure that the Ice Path dodges, and because the Nyx Assassin stun is already gone, he's able to escape safely. If Storm Spirit had been back by that time, he would have been dead, no question, because he adds the additional disable of the Electric Vortex and quite a bit of damage. But Storm Spirit was just teleporting in over here, and he couldn't walk over in the time that it would take to actually make sure that the Nightstalker died. So, an early advantage secured. Definitely behind in terms of last hits in this middle lane, but the Nightstalker did pick up an assist and an early death on the board for Storm Spirit. More or less tied in terms of XP. Storm Spirit just a bit ahead due to these extra denies. But Nightstalker doing very, very well for himself. It's tough for Nightstalker to just win a lane outright without getting support early, especially against somebody like Storm Spirit. But as long as he's able to get that level 6 in talent fashion, as long as he's well positioned to hunt during the first night, you can see that he already has this Smoke of Deceit to help him get those ganks. Then you're very, very happy with your Nightstalker, because really the first night is when Nightstalker strikes. It's when you sort of get that hero developed. It's when you sort of expect to get the reward out of picking that hero. Clockwork, meanwhile, he has managed to survive this entire time. He's only level 3, so a little bit behind where the Darkseer is. You see the Darkseer is actually almost at level 5 already. Did not have to do that early jungling. This tri-lane is not quite as dangerous. Dangerous enough that the Darkseer was in a lot of trouble. There's no dual stun. Lifestealer in particular is is not that effective at killing a Lifestealer on a tri-lane, just because the Darkseer can wait for this open wounds to go out on him, and then he can immediately respond to that with actually using the Surge. Actually missed a kill in the middle, so Storm Spirit managing to pick off the Nightstalker, and that's a great kill for them, especially since it's, actually Nightstalker popped his ultimate to try to get Darkness, but not quite enough to take Storm Spirit down, so he manages to trade it off. He gets more XP and gold for that than the Night Stalker did, as it's a direct kill rather than simply an assist. And he was the only hero there, so he gets the full XP bounty as well. So Storm Spirit, equalizing it in the middle, he's going to be able to pick up an invisibility rune as well. No vision here for Sick Gaming, so they don't exactly know where the Storm Spirit is or what he has planned. He could definitely attempt to jump in on this Clockwork. He does have his ultimate all prepped and ready for this Ball Lightning. But it looks like he's going to decide not to do that. He's going to move up back towards the middle, stay invisible, and he may actually attempt to get a second kill on Night Stalker in the middle, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. He is invisible, and I don't think Night Stalker knows that invisibility rune is the rune that he actually managed to pick up.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
We got another gank coming out, so smoke up on Undying and Rubik once again, and they come in. So Star Spear revealed as a Viz, and not exactly at the right moment. He does actually have, yes, he's able to blink out. And a lot of damage actually coming at the tower has done an incredible amount of damage to his characters. So Darkseer is coming in to do quite a bit of bump up. Really good void by the Night Stalker, but Nyx comes in, and the stun is crucial timing for the start of the Nyx Assassin. Starseer may pick up a kill. Excellent cogs from the Clockwork, and somehow this Undying is still alive. This power cogs was an incredible place. Night Stalker picked up a kill in the back of Darkseer as well. So Clockwork sacrifices his life, but the trade-off is enormous. Gyrocopter rocket coming in as well, and this fight is starting to get completely out of control. Multiple deaths on both sides. Jakiro does manage to land an Ice Path. This Undying has 32 hit points and barely that amount of mana. He will escape with almost no life, so in the end we trade off a Nyx Assassin and a Darkseer on one side. We lose Clockwork and I think Rubik on the other side. A pretty simple gank attempt coming out on Storm Spirit does not actually succeed in picking up the Storm Spirit, it has to be noted. And it ends up with a massive team fight with almost every character from both teams being rotated. And a kill for Gyrocopter, he gets that, I think he landed that last hit with his homing missile on the Clockwork, or the Rubik. They don't manage to pick off the Storm Spirit. The silence from Night Stalker wore off just in time for him to actually blink up to the high ground. And very good work by Ice Gaming actually rotating their heroes over. That's excellent, excellent, excellent job. And I do have to also make a note that Gyrocopter is rocketing way ahead of Lifestealer in terms of farm. This Darkseer is so effective against a melee carry like Lifestealer. You can see that the Lifestealer has actually taken an enormous amount of damage. And it's because of this Iron Shell. Actually, he's forced to infest just to survive. Actually, he invested into a low target target and Darkseer manages to pick him off. So, amazing play from Darkseer there. Waits until Lifestealer is at his most vulnerable. Lifestealer actually makes a fairly big mistake by investing a low HP target rather than a high one. You gain the health equal to the current HP of the unit. So if you infest a low health unit, you gain almost no hit points from that. You need to infest something like a full health unit to actually get the full amount of that heal back up. So, Lifestealer managing to get almost nothing back from that. He does have this Midas, so that's the good news. But the fact that he just got taken down by Darkseer in this lane is very, very bad for him. Clockwork managing to get back up down here, so actually Night Stalker rotating here, still trying to make something of the first night. This Void and or this earned damage will actually get the kill here. So 2 more kills on the board for them. Clockwork gets picked off in the back by the Storm Spirit. He wanted second helpings with the Rubik, but he doesn't actually have the mana to do it. But a kill for him. Night Star actually a great smoke timing here. Storm Spirit uses the last of his mana, and they're going to keep chasing. Night Star actually wingless. This is kind of funny. It's a graphical bug. Void coming out of the Storm Spirit. I don't know if he'll actually get the mana to survive this. Undying not with that much HP, so the Darkseer rotation might be enough for what they need. Earn damage will not take Storm Spirit over, and Darkseer just everywhere at the right time, managing to come in and pick up yet another kill. They actually have a 6-5 kill advantage against a team where that's sort of they're on the back foot in terms of who's going to get ganked, but their rotations in terms of getting their supports teleported to the right locations at the right time, especially this Darkseer has just been absolutely Johnny on the spot in terms of getting to a spot and turning that team fight around. So both teams quite well warded, but
Dire's bottom tower has
this
fallen.
Night Stalker so far, he has generated kill opportunities, but it's just not quite enough for them to actually get an advantage. Sick Gaming currently, I think, somewhat on the back foot, because this Gyrocopter actually chose to also get Midas, so both carries have Midas. but there's an enormous farm differential. So you see almost 20 more last hits on the gyrocopter, adding up to about a 1,700 net worth differential. He's worth 1.5 times as much as what the Lifestealer is worth, especially because Lifestealer actually caught the death, the gyrocopter didn't. And more action in the middle. Storm Spirit actually diving very, very deep to get that kill, but successfully and managing to lock out that Night Stalker for 30 more seconds of nighttime. Now Storm Spirit is probably going to pay with his life as this clockwork, just enough damage with this, the battery assault as well as the staying right on top of them and meleeing him. And with the Undying, that's enough for them to actually take down the Storm Spirit. The Undying starting to build towards this mechanism as well. He's got the buckler, about halfway towards the headdress, and then you'll see him finish off that mechanism. Actually, probably fairly quickly, because it looks like they're going to delegate some fun with him. Meanwhile, for the Radiant, they actually are basically at the same amount of progress towards their mechanism as well. Their mechanism carrier being Darkseer. So Radiant still earning, I think, a somewhat of an advantage, but not a very dramatic one yet. Again, Gyrocopter, he peaks quite a bit later than Lifestealer. Eventually, he will be a more formidable force, but with the same amount of farm early on, the Lifestealer is definitely a little bit more of a threat to the heroes. Nyx Assassin coming in, they're going to try to pick up this Clockwork. The fact that there's no tower here actually giving them the opportunity to deal an incredible amount of damage to him. Clockwork using Power Cogs, but again, as I mentioned, if you've got heroes on top of you, Power Cogs does very, very little to help you escape. So he did his best, but unfortunately he did get taken down. That Nyx Assassin has that very stealth initiation capability with Vendetta that if you don't have a tower, this place is just incredibly unsafe for you. Meanwhile, actually at the top, Storm Spirit managed to get another kill, and now you see Ice Gaming really prying open sort of a crowbar into this game and managing to get kills in each lane. So Storm Spirit doing a better job of rotating and ganking than this Night Stalker is currently doing. I mean, he does have that extra mobility if he's able to get early levels and enough mana to sort of sustain himself. You can see double Robe of the Magi here. He's moving towards his Orchid Malevolence, but he's just going for flat mana first in these steps. Definitely not going for the quarter stats, going for mana regen and flat mana to make sure that he is able to zip around, to make sure that he is able to jump in and start initiations, start fights of that Night Lifestealer. And so this is very, very, very good for Ice because they're keeping the primary farmer of the other team down. They're managing to make sure that Lifestealer doesn't get that early development. And they're moving that Storm Spirit towards his Orchid very, very quickly. 5, 2, and 2, while this Night Stalker really, really struggles. 2, 2, and 2. Only a part of 4 fights. And just really not able to make much of this first night considering it just completely ended. And not only is his darkness over, the first night's over, and so you're not going to see this Night Stalker ganking for a very long period of time. And he really didn't get much out of that first night phase. The thing about Night Stalker is you are really on the clock. You have to make sure that your first night is very good. And if you come out of the first night worse than you really came into it, excellent jump in by the Clockwork there. They're really able to be picking up this Jakiro. And it's a kill for Lifestealer that definitely gets him back on the board. Once he sort of uses this Midas, it'll give him even more closer to up to his armlet. We'll probably see him finish armlet before he actually makes tier 2 boots. You do want some sort of tier 2 boots, usually phase boots on Lifestealer. I really don't know why he's not using his Hand of Midas. It's not worth waiting for a jungle creep. He needs to just use it on cooldown. So, good for them to get on the board there, trading 1 for 1 in that fight. And the Lifestealer definitely sort of starting to get closer to the Storm Spirit. Not able to kill that Darkseer there. Again, Darkseer able to escape from open wounds just very, very easily with this Surge. But they are developing this Lifestealer the best they can. They're going to make that armlet as soon as they possibly can, because they really need something. Just boots and Helm of Iron Will is really not enough at 14 minutes for your Lifestealer. Once he actually gets armlet, he'll be substantially more effective in that respect, and they will actually be able to do, to be able to do more with him. But for now, a Gyrocopter, you see that his BKB is actually complete. So this is as much defensive capability as this Gyrocopter is going to need. What we're going to see him do now is move towards damage items. Most likely, I think it was most likely going to start out with a Manta style, and then maybe work on something past that. But for now, Gyrocopter definitely absolutely dominating in terms of just sitting there, getting the farm that he needs, not participating in team fights unless they absolutely need him, and a huge fight breaking out at tier 1 mid. So Undying actually walks into the macro bar and gets picked off there. Rubik going off at low health. They're not able to pick off this Nyx Assassin. Night Stalker thought he might be able to get it, but he's very, very slow during the daytime. So Gyrocopter, again, rotating only exactly when they need him, and it's just enough to make sure they pick up 2 kills, including the Night Stalker. This Night Stalker has been almost completely neutered at this point, still sitting on just his boots of speed and no charge, Urn of Shadows, and a magic wand. So almost nothing for him, especially when you then compare it to Storm Spirit, who's finished his first Oblivion Staff, well on the way to the second, and so in another 3 or 4 minutes we'll probably see Orchid Malevolence come up for him. So in terms of the battle of the mids, we have the Storm Spirit getting way, way ahead of the position that the Night Stalker is in. And Sick Gaming are definitely going to be on the back foot. At this point, their hopes really rest on making sure that this Lifestealer, especially does get picked off again, he does infest a creep, but he's not going to get that much health from it, and Darkseer is right on top of him once again, managing to get a kill. And so I think two lanes really crucial in this game. And that's the top lane performance of Darkseer, managing to essentially get the advantage in what started out as a 1 versus 3 lane, managing to get more than one kill on this Lifestealer and just keeping him completely at a huge farming deficit relative to the Raidcall. Undying does pick off Jakiro on the retreat, so that'll be well on the way to his mechanism. They really do need that. He's going to have it in about 250 more gold. I think the mechanism on Radiant is actually already complete, so yeah, Darkseer does have his mechanism. So, Dire are definitely going to look at Storm Spirit stepping in. This is going to be another death for Night Stalker, most likely. A great attempt to help him out with this clockwork, but it's not going to be quite enough. It will be enough to sort of trade off, but these are trade-offs that are incredibly unfavorable for them. If you lose a Lifestealer, and you get a Jakiro for it, it's really not much. It's really not what you want or need. And it's the same story, actually. Great turnaround here. Darkseer, yet again, coming in, managing to protect this team, managing to turn situations in which they might get a loss into at least 1, frequently 2 kills. So extremely strong play from this Darkseer, advancing to 5-1-4, and just again and again there to bail his team out, there to turn engagements into wins. And you can just see this is why Darkseer is it's an incredibly versatile, strong hero. We haven't actually seen the wall do that much in this game, which is the sort of traditional reason why people say Darkseer is very powerful. We've just seen him with incredibly smart play, surging the right targets, ion shelling, doing a lot of damage, a surprising amount of damage with the ion shell on targets, and really just counteracting the effects of this Night Stalker, Clockwork, Lifestealer core. Really a team that relies upon abusing the lack of mobility of its opponents. And so, with Ice Gaming, you have a team that actually gets additional mobility in the form of Darkseer surge on anybody, in the form of Storm Spirit being able to zip anywhere. And they can just completely pick apart Sick Gaming's less mobile ganking team by just counter-ganking them. So we set up sort of, okay, Clockwork and Night Stalker are going to go out and try to get a kill. We will completely counteract them with this well-developed Storm Spirit. Again, Power Cogs, he's going to try to escape with it, but it's not enough because Storm Spirit can zip right over the boundary of the Cogs, pick him off, and now 4 heroes lost for Sick in this sort of ongoing teamfight. Lifestealer also walking into a nice path there. It won't be quite enough for him to actually die, but he's just sort of sitting there helpless. He's not anywhere near, like you can see, Gyrocopter 2400 on top of the BKB. His development is just completely outstripping the Lifestealer as he's gotten maybe 3 last hits in the last couple minutes. I think at this point, Sick Gaming are definitely floundering, and this stealth Nyx, again, they don't know about this. They will know once it comes into the range of the tower, but he doesn't care. He pops up the stun, and a lot of damage being thrown on Lifestealer. He is disabled before he's actually able to even pop range, so he's not even able to get the magic immunity necessary to live through that series of damage. So, Undying manages to walk away, thank goodness, with the mechanism, timing mechanism, but he has no mana. He has no health. This Gyrocopter's in a bit of trouble because this Tombstone didn't actually do any damage to the Tombstone. Actually, it might get picked off. Good steal by Rubik to actually pick up the Storm Spirit's zip. He's not able to zip quite as effectively as Storm Spirit just because he has no items to actually be able to sustain that. But it was enough to secure the kill on Gyrocopter. That is an absolutely critical kill. They have to do something to make sure that this Gyro isn't getting completely out of control. So, excellent kill for them. But 1 kill in exchange for essentially 5 or even more, 7 kills that Ice managed to pick up in the time that it took Sick to actually get that 1 kill. Darkseer, meanwhile, freely farming, he's finished up his hood. Most likely, I think his next item will be to build up that vertical pipe. Good hook by Clockwork there, so this surge isn't going to do much for him at all. But excellent vacuum actually puts Sick on Ice, puts Sick outside of the power box that he's trapped into. And he's surged up. Will he be able to get out? Oh my goodness. Darkseer actually walks away from that. Storm Spirit a little bit bold there. He does get silenced by the Night Stalker. This is a very long duration silence at night, so if Storm Spirit zips in and gets silenced, he is not going to actually be able to survive that. Jakiro and Nyx continuing to just keep their Darkseer alive, and a huge macro pyre here. Actually enough to do enormous amount of damage. That Lifestealer is going down as is Undying, so Nyx Assassin popping his Spike Carapace, not enough to do anything to Undying. Of course, if Lifestealer has his Rage active, the Spiked Carapace willed from the Nyx Assassin will not stun him. So they do lose 3 eventually for only an additional 1. But again, you see that at this point, Ice's advantage is sufficient that they can really punish even attempts to get one of their players. And that's been what's happened time and time again. Because this Night Stalker got a slow start, because the Lifestealer isn't actually all that developed, Sick Gaming will try to get a gank here or there, or they'll try to chase a fleeing hero or a hero that's out of position. And it becomes very difficult for them to actually do that to Ice, because Ice have this defensive capability. Jakira's an excellent area defender by being able to just generate a no-go zone with Ice Path and Macropyre and Dual Breath, all these sort of line abilities. In that fight, you saw Sick sort of pour forth here in an attempt to catch the... Oh, I can't do it while pause. So in an attempt to catch the Lifestealer, Sick sort of charge forward into this area. But then Jakiro and Nyx Assassin come from here. And what you see is they actually plant areas, like Nyx Assassin just stuns here, right up into this area here, and then Jakiro places a line stun down here, and then Macropyre eventually here. So it becomes very difficult for Sick Gaming to actually proceed and continue chasing the Darkseer, because they're passing through a sort of gauntlet of deadly traps on their way. So... Excuse me. So Ice Gaming definitely doing an incredible job of using their area denial skills of the Darkseer, of the Jakiro, of the Nyx Assassin to make sure that these melee heroes of Sick, because if you look, you have so many melee heroes. Clockwork is melee, Night Stalker is melee, Lifestealer is melee, Undying is melee. They deal an enormous amount of damage in melee range. And so what that means is that these skills like, oh actually excellent Hogs there, but it's probably not going to be, sorry excellent shot, but it's not going to be enough to actually kill the Star Spirit. You can walk away from this no problem. Starcopter popping BKB, he is being chased, but again, look at this. Look at how strong these area denial effects are. I didn't actually comment on this, but this Jakiro was an excellent support pick for this game. Unfortunately, it doesn't miss the ice path, but it won't be enough to go back to the Darkseer being enough. Because every time, this huge melee lineup of Sick is being punished again and again by the fact that Ice have picked a lineup that can punish melee. This Jakiro Ice Path Macropyre is such a strong combo when there's a bunch of melee heroes chasing your team. And this Nyx Assassin line stun, if this hits 3 heroes, your team takes so much punishment from that. And so I think Sick may have just picked a little too heavy of a melee lineup here. Especially, I think they really became an unforced error when they took the Night Stalker and the Clockwork. I think one of those could have been justified, but picking up both of them, first of all, the synergy between these two heroes is very bad, because really, if you power Cogs and Night Stalker's trying to run in, he can't get in on that hero. He can cast a Void on them, but he really can't deal melee damage. They have quite a bit of counter synergy with these power Cogs. Any hero of the opposing team that's power Cog is a hero that most of their heroes can't actually access. So I'm not quite sure about this lineup in terms of the fact that the heavy melee compared to the huge area denial effects, even the call down, it's just so much more likely than melee. Ruben managing, I agree to actually note that Ruben has just been really on point with these steals. He stole both for Star Spirit at a good time, he stole the Darkseer wall, which has been very useful in this game. But this chaotic fight is just ending up getting picked apart yet again. The Macropyre down once again. Undying taking a lot of damage. He's very beefy. He's got tons of stacks of decay. Good Ice Path again, but very good dodging of that Ice Path in particular. This Jakiro probably going to get picked up on the back foot here. Yes, he gets picked up at the tower head. So a lot of deaths for them there, but unfortunately the Star Spirit is actually probably going to pick up the Rax here. So while Sick were trying to clean that up, they do lose the first Rax of the game in the form of this melee Rax. So, Sick on the board. They do have the Orchid on the Storm Spirit. He's building towards, it looks like Bloodstone next, so he's actually pretty close to it. Most likely going to finish up that Bloodstone as his next item. So, Bloodstone, another one of those sort of snowball type items where if you're winning, picking up, especially on a Storm Spirit, if you're 12-3 right now and you pick up a Bloodstone, you're going to become completely undeal-withable. You can take a game from we're way ahead but it's possible for the other team to come back into we're way ahead and it's impossible for them to come back, because even if they kill our Storm Spirit, he's going to be back within seconds and right back into the fray. Storm Spirit is one of the strongest Bloodstone carriers because the shortened respawn time is just incredibly effective for him, because unlike many heroes, Storm Spirit can get back to the fight incredibly easy just by blinking in. And secondly, Bloodstone is really best on heroes that have a theoretically infinite usage of mana, because the amount of regen that Bloodstone gives you when it has a lot of charges is so high that most heroes actually can't make use of it. This is, for instance, why most people don't recommend that you go Bloodstone on Necrolite, because regen is good, but even though Necrolite has a 3-second cooldown spell, once you have 12-ish charges on your Bloodstone, there's physically no way that Necrolite can spend all that mana. So any additional regen that you're getting from that is essentially wasted. Now, Storm Spirit is one of the few heroes where it is actually impossible for him to use all of that. I mean, it's actually possible for him to use any amount of mana. Because if he has any extra mana, he can just continue using it to ball lightning all over the map. This is why regen is so good. Amazing call down from Gyrocopter here. So again, we have these 4 tightly clumped heroes from Sick Game, and Ice are able to take advantage of it by just jumping in, using things like Vacuum, using things like Macro Power from the Hero, and just dealing a ton of damage. There is no way that Sick can actually survive any damage without the entire Ice Gaming lineup is designed to take advantage of clumping, and so they are taking advantage of that and killing off Sick again and again and again. Clockwork trying back to try to get a kill there, and just completely getting taken. We do have a GG coming out, so we are going to go into game 2, it looks like, because, I mean, that's very, very wise. At this point, Sick have really no way of getting this game. I think they honestly, and we didn't talk about this that much in the drafting stage, although maybe we should have, but the vulnerability of that massive melee army meant that you already have Darkseer, who's pretty strong, like he's able to clump heroes up, and you already have Nyx Assassin, whose line stun becomes vastly more effective than the other enemy teams. Sorry, let's start with the first 3 picks. You have Darkseer, Nyx Assassin, Gyrocopter. So Gyrocopter, pretty good against clumped heroes because he's able to land his call down, he's able to ensure that his rocket bars deals damage off the
Radiant victory.
But then to add Nightstalker, melee ganger, and Clockwork onto that, is you're sort of asking for the other team to just take advantage of that. And that's exactly what Ice did with this pick of the Storm Spirit, and especially the Jakiro. So this was a very inspired support to fill out their lineup, because they knew that the other team would always be in predictable locations clumped up. And so Jakiro's abilities, they're all not tremendously impressive when taken sort of in a one-on-one scenario. But if you can land Macro Pyre on 3 players, on 4 players, which a Power Cogs from Clockwork from the other team can actually ensure that your Macro Pyre is more effective, then it becomes an incredibly fearsome ability. And so this Jakiro, you can see 7-4-16. This is a very unusually positive record for a number 5 hero to have. He's number 4 in this game, I guess, because the Nyx Assassin was actually even more hard support than he was. But still, for a Jakiro to do this well is very unusual, and it's testament to the fact that their team was designed to take advantage of this massive melee clumping that Sick Gaming fell privy to. And of course, a note has to be said, even though the most dominant record performance on this is on the Storm Spirit, I want to talk about, I think the key to the game was the Darkseer. He really excelled in that 1 versus 3 lane. He was able to survive incredibly effectively. He ends up 8-1-14, and really, especially, critical kills on the Lifestealer at important junctures in his farm, just making sure that he never got to anything more than just an armlet and power treads. This Lifestealer was not very effective. There was really no point at which he got the farm or the development to actually be an effective force in this game. And you can see, 5 kills for him, but no assists. He was barely part of any fights, he wasn't even getting the farm, and Darkseer was really preying him, especially once the lane became more or less 1 versus 1 with the other supports from Sick having to rotate. And so a big win for Ice in this first game of the semifinals. We're going to move to game 2 in just a moment, and we're going to see what sort of Sick Gaming has up their sleeve to try to take it to a game 3 in the semifinal match.